They sold your car and withdrew your college savings so your brother could get another chance. And that was the first thing said to me on my 19th birthday. No celebration, no joke, just that statement laid out on the kitchen table. I came downstairs in pajamas, hoping the smell of coffee meant cake, but instead found documents neatly stacked, my mother sitting with composed posture and rehearsed calm, sliding a loan agreement toward me and explaining that my brother owed $25,000 and needed me to co-sign so the bank would restructure it. Otherwise, they could not support us both. My name was already typed in place, as if my consent were assumed, and when I questioned the sale of my car and the loss of my fund, both paid for through my own work and careful saving, she framed it as family sacrifice, insisting I would manage because I was capable. I chose not to argue, quietly acknowledged her words, and carried the papers upstairs, understanding in that moment that if decisions about my future could be made without me, I could plan my own without notice. I did not sign anything, instead packing essentials, documents, and proof of what had once been mine while reviewing every clause of a contract and confirming that without my signature, I held no legal responsibility. When pressed to hurry to the bank, I said I needed time to think and left for the library by bus, aware that my lack of a car was now another consequence of choices made for me. Calls followed from my mother and then my brother, who minimized the debt and framed it as a simple favor, but I reminded him of the repeated times my resources had already been used to cover his mistakes and made it clear I would not attach my name to his obligations again. Ending the call brought a sense of clarity, and I began reviewing my accounts, seeing the empty balance and the pattern of withdrawals that aligned with his crises, realizing it was not a single incident, but an ongoing misuse justified by promises to fix things later. Research showed the situation sat in a legal gray area due to joint access, but it also confirmed that their pressure relied on my fear and lack of knowledge, which I no longer had. A friend found me there, listened as I explained everything, and bluntly supported my refusal to sign, reminding me that leaving might be difficult, but staying meant continued sacrifice with no regard for my future. By the end of that day, the fear had shifted into resolve. I would not co-sign, I would not continue absorbing consequences that were not mine, and I would start making decisions based on my own long-term stability rather than expectations placed on me that I looked at the screen. I had timestamps, account statements, and the option to request full bank records. A clear, risky idea started forming. If they assumed I would just sit quietly and accept their actions, they were in for a surprise. Her lips curved into a faint, grim smile. "Revenge through adulthood," she said. I liked that. "It's not revenge," I said, though even I wasn't entirely convinced. "It's about not letting them bury me under debt that isn't mine." "Call it what you want," she replied. "You are allowed to be angry. You are allowed to protect yourself. That isn't selfish, it's sane." My phone buzzed again. Mom, then my brother, then Mom again. No messages, just calls. I powered it off. "Okay," I said. Step 1. Gather every document proving what they had done. Step 2. Speak with the financial aid office before they assumed I was lying. Step 3. I swallowed. Step 3 was figuring out where I could actually live if I followed through. "You can stay at my place tonight," she offered immediately. "If your family ruins your birthday, the least I can do is offer a bed and cheap takeout." The tight knot in my chest loosened slightly. "You're sure?" "Absolutely," she said. "My mom has been waiting for an excuse to adopt you for years." I smiled for the first time that day. Then step 4. Tell my family I would not go to the bank with them and that I would not return in the way they expected. "Do you want backup?" she asked. I pictured her in my living room, watching Mom guilt me into signing away my future. I thought of my brother's excuses, my father's silence. "No," I said. "I need to do this alone. But if it goes badly, I might show up with more luggage than expected." She lifted her coffee in a mock toast. To worst-case scenarios turning out better than expected. I clinked my cup against hers. By the time I left the library, my fear had taken shape. It was still there, but it no longer controlled me. I knew what I would say when I returned home, and which lines I would not cross. For the first time, I knew that if they forced me to choose, I would choose myself. You've seen the ultimatum they gave me and the decision I made, But you haven't seen what happens when I re-enter the house. Not as a silent backup plan, but as someone ready to reveal what they've done and refuse to comply. That's when the real cracks begin to show.
Keep watching.
Returning home that evening felt like stepping onto a stage where everyone else had rehearsed, and I was improvising. Lights were on, the TV droned in the background. My suitcase and duffel bag were still half-packed under my bed upstairs. The loan agreement was in my backpack alongside printed copies of the most incriminating statements I could gather before the library printer gave out. My mom sat at the kitchen table, phone in hand, like that morning. My brother paced in front of the sink, fingers running through his hair. Relief crossed his face when he saw me. Irritation hers. "You finally decided to come back," she said. "We missed the bank appointment because of you." "You missed it because you scheduled it without asking me," I replied, shrugging off my jacket. "You have no choice," she snapped. "You live here. You eat our food. Sleep under our roof. When we ask you to help your brother, you help." "Funny you say are," I said, when it was my fondue emptied. Her eyes flashed. "Do not start." Too late. I unzipped my backpack and laid the papers on the table. My brother leaned closer. "What are all these printouts?" he asked. "From my account," I said. "The one meant for my education." I pointed to a line. Withdrawal for car repairs 2 years ago, money I had trusted them to handle. Another line. Payment covering failed classes they promised to retake. Another. A credit card payoff I never opened. It aligned with weeks my brother lost money. Mom's face went pale, then red with anger. "You have no right to dig through our finances," she hissed. "Our," I said.
Mine.
"I trusted you, but you drained it slowly, over years, without telling me." My brother swallowed. "Mom, is that what you did?" She snapped at him. "Do not look at me like that. Everything I did," I said, "was to keep this family afloat, but you did it without telling me." The living room door opened. Dad appeared, briefcase in hand, tired. "What is going on?" he asked. I slid a statement toward him. "Did you know?" He scanned the pages, guilt growing. "I knew we were using some savings," he admitted. "I thought it was temporary. I didn't realize how much." "You didn't ask," I said. "You signed whatever Mom put in front of you." Mom stood, chair scraping. "Don't blame him. He works for us. I make hard decisions. That's what parents do." "No," I said. "Parents protect their children. They don't gamble one child's future to cover another's mistakes." Silence fell. My brother sank into a chair, staring at the statements like a foreign language. Dad asked quietly, "You want an apology?" "I know you're sorry. The money is gone." "Can't change that," I said. "I'm not asking for magic. I will not chain myself to a $25,000 loan." Mom's mouth fell open. "You think you can refuse? Walk away, because you're angry?" "I can refuse," I said. "I can walk away if necessary." My brother's voice cracked. "You can't mean that." I looked at him. The boy who once shared my childhood mischief, the young man always needing a bailout. "I love you," I said, "but I'm done being your insurance policy." He lowered his gaze. Mom stepped closer, voice softened. "Lily, you're emotional hurt. This is the real world. Nobody will help you. At least here you have us. Sign. We'll get through it together." "Like when you sold my car, emptied my account, turned my birthday into a debt negotiation?" I asked. Her jaw clenched. "It was never going to be enough anyway. You'd need loans. This just moves the timeline up." "No," I said. "It moves up the timeline for me realizing where I stand in this family." Dad rubbed his temples. "What do you want?" "My name off anything not mine. Stop using me to solve problems I didn't create. Let me build a future not tied to credit you ruined." "If not, I leave," I said. "Mom, I see. Then you'll leave?" "Yes. My friend's family will host me while I figure it out. I'll talk to financial aid. I'll work. I'll do what you always told me. Be strong." She gasped. "You'd expose our private business?" "You sold my future to protect your image. Humiliation is irrelevant now." Her hand trembled on the chair. Walk out. Do not expect to return. All eyes waited, expecting me to back down. I picked up the loan agreement, folded it, and slid it back. Then get used to looking at that without my signature. This is when the balance shifts. I am no longer silently used, and I am no longer silently allowing it. The evidence is on the table, the ultimatum at the door. That night, the house didn't erupt. Instead, a cold silence fell. Mom went to her room, slamming the door once. Dad went to the office. My brother vanished into a screen. I sat at the table, staring at the loan agreement as if it were a caged snake, dangerous but contained. Finally, I packed my papers into my backpack and went upstairs. My room looked the same, but everything felt temporary. I pulled out my suitcase and duffel, rolled my clothes, packed my laptop, notebooks, chargers, and the shoebox of documents. I left behind items that didn't fit. My childhood stuffed animal, a framed family photo, trophies Mom insisted we keep. At the bottom, the keys to the car I no longer owned. I held them briefly, feeling the memory of freedom, then set them aside. My phone buzzed, a text from my friend, couch ready, pizza, ice cream, birthday emergency kit. My chest tightened with gratitude and grief. This wasn't the birthday I imagined, but maybe it was the one I needed. I texted back, I am leaving in the morning. Sneaking out would have been easy, silent. But that was how I'd always lived. Quiet, careful, invisible. If I wanted change, I had to be seen at least once. I set my alarm early, lay in the dark, listening to the muffled sounds of the house. Floorboards creaked, doors opened and closed, voices rose and fell. At some point, my brother knocked. "Come in," I said. He stepped inside, hands in hoodie pockets. "You really aren't going to sign?" he asked. "No," I said. He swallowed. What happens when I pack my bags and call their bluff is just beginning, that I felt the tension in the air before I even spoke. My brother sat on the edge of my bed, hands twisting the hem of his hoodie, eyes darting between my half-packed bags and the quiet determination on my face. "I'm freaking out," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper, raw with fear and disbelief. I nodded slightly, trying to give him a small measure of comfort even though my own stomach was twisting in knots. "I know," he continued, eyes flicking nervously toward the duffel bag and suitcase that leaned against the wall like silent witnesses to the day's chaos. "They keep saying you'll change your mind. They think this is just a point I'm making," I said, keeping my voice steady, though inside I felt a storm brewing. "It is a point," I clarified, "but it's a point about control. I am done letting them decide my life while pretending it's love." I watched his shoulders slump slightly, the weight of understanding settling over him. "You're really going to leave for real?" His voice wavered, the uncertainty of his question mirroring the unspoken fear I had been suppressing since the night before. I took a deep breath. "For real?" I repeated, letting the words hang between us. There was no hesitation now. Only the quiet certainty of someone who had finally realized the extent of what they were capable of. He sank onto the bed, eyes downcast. "What am I supposed to do?" he asked, almost pleading, almost like a child who suddenly understood the consequences of his own choices. "Figure it out," I said softly, my tone gentler than I felt. "Like I've always had to." The words cut through the room, a mirror reflecting years of unseen struggle. "That's not fair," he said, wincing, the honesty of his emotions breaking through his usual defensiveness. "Neither is any of this," I replied firmly, my voice steady despite the rush of emotion I felt under my ribs. "But I am not the one who gambled with tuition, racked up credit card debt, or ignored every warning until it became a five-figure problem. I am allowed to refuse to drown with you." He looked up then, eyes glistening as if the reality of his actions had finally struck him. Are you going to hate me?" The question landed harder than I expected, slicing through the remaining calm. "I do not hate you," I said carefully. "I hate what you did. I hate that you keep letting Mom clean up your messes by burning my life down in the process. I hate that you never asked what it cost me when they used my fund for your emergencies." His voice came barely above a whisper. "I didn't know it was that bad." You didn't want to know. I corrected him sharply. Because then you would have had to feel guilty. Congratulations. Now you do. He flinched, recoiling as though I had physically struck him, but he did not argue. There was a pause then, a silence filled with the weight of unspoken truths. Do you really think you can do this on your own? He asked finally, the fear in his voice genuine and piercing. For once, it was not about him, it was about me. Yes, I said with quiet resolve. Or, at least I am willing to try. I would rather struggle on my own terms than stay here and pretend that this dysfunction is normal. He nodded slowly, processing my words. He rose to leave, pausing at the door, hand on the knob, hesitant yet respectful of the boundary I had finally drawn. If you go, he said softly, everything is going to fall apart. I know, I admitted, my voice calm but firm. Maybe it needs to. When he left, I locked the door behind him and sat on the edge of my bed, heart hammering against my ribs like it wanted to escape. Part of me wanted to chase after him, to take it all back, to pretend I could live under this roof if it meant preserving the familiar. But familiarity had become a cage, one I was determined to break free from. The nights stretched long and silent, punctuated only by the distant hum of the streetlights outside and the occasional creak of the floorboards. Morning came too quickly. My alarm shrieked at 6 a.m., pulling me from the restless half-sleep of a night filled with racing thoughts. I dressed mechanically in jeans and a hoodie, clothes that felt like armor, the same attire I'd wear for a class presentation where I needed to look composed even if I wasn't. I zipped my suitcase, slung the duffel over my shoulder, and took one last sweeping look at the room that had been both a sanctuary and a trap. Then I stepped toward the door. The hallway was quiet, eerily so. My parents were awake, their low voices carrying faintly from the kitchen. My brother's door remained closed, light spilling from the crack at the bottom, a silent barrier between us. Step by step, I descended, each movement deliberate. My mom was at the counter with a coffee mug in hand, eyes red-rimmed, betraying both sleep and a hint of apprehension. My dad sat at the table, the loan agreement laid before him like a gauntlet, silent and expectant. Neither spoke. Finally, my dad cleared his throat. You're really doing this? Yes, I said plainly, my voice unwavering despite the knot in my stomach. My mother's gaze flicked to the bags at my feet. So that's it? You're just leaving? She asked, her tone a mix of incredulity and wounded pride. That question ignited something deep within me. Everything you did for me? I repeated, voice steady. You mean the years of telling me to work hard, save, be responsible, then using my savings without my knowledge, selling my car behind my back, turning my birthday into a debt negotiation? She flinched, the words landing like stones in the still air. You are ungrateful, she said sharply. I am awake, I replied. There is a difference. My father pushed the loan agreement toward me, a last attempt at leverage. If you sign, you don't have to go. We can figure this out together. I will figure it out, I said firmly. But I will not do it as collateral. I will not tie myself to debt that is not mine. He looked down, shoulders sagging, realizing the truth of my stance. Knowing the truth and acting on it are two entirely different battles. My mom placed her mug down with a sharp clink. If you walk out that door, she said, repeating her warning from the night before, don't expect us to rescue you when the real world chews you up. I don't, I said. That's exactly the point. I set my house key on the table. The small metallic click felt louder than any argument, heavier than any shout. I will be in touch, I added, when I am ready. I picked up my bags, hands steady, and walked to the door. Behind me, my mom called my name one last time, her voice wavering in a way that nearly broke me. Almost. I stepped out into the crisp morning air. Cold, clean, and real. My phone buzzed incessantly. Notifications from the bank, emails, missed calls from unknown numbers. I did not yet know that by the time I reached my friend's house, voicemails would be waiting, that the bank would call again, and that my brother would send a flurry of messages, anger turning to panic as the reality of his collapsing second chance set in. In that moment, all I knew was that I was moving towards something that belonged to me instead of being pulled along by debts, obligations, and betrayals that were never mine to carry. I did not cry until I was 3 blocks away, standing at a cold, metal bus stop. One second I was dragging my suitcase over cracked pavement. The next, tears blurred my vision, throat tight, chest aching. I buried my face in my hands, breathing through the pain, not from regret but from the fact that it had ever come to this point. By the time I reached my friend's house, I had mostly composed myself. Her mother opened the door before I could knock twice, enveloping me in a hug that smelled like laundry detergent and coffee. "Happy birthday, sweetheart. Rough one, huh?" "You have no idea," I whispered, voice shaky. "Actually," she said gently, "I think I do."
Come in.
"We'll figure this out." The couch had been made up with clean sheets, countless pillows scattered in what I could only describe as cheerful chaos. Pizza sat on the coffee table, along with a cheap grocery store cake with my name scrawled in slightly crooked blue icing. 19 candles stood unlit, waiting. "We weren't sure if you'd make it," my friend said, lighting a match. I stared at the tiny flames dancing to life, 19 wishes burning in miniature. I closed my eyes and made exactly one. Let this not be for nothing. Smoke, sugar, and possibility filled the room as I blew out the candles. We ate pizza and cake in companionable silence, the TV playing some mindless show that none of us really paid attention to. My phone sat screen down on the coffee table, buzzing intermittently like a heartbeat out of sync. Finally, my friend spoke. "You can check it, or leave it off again. Your choice." I flipped it over. Missed calls, voicemails, texts, mom, brother, bank. My stomach dropped at the last message from my brother. "They said you didn't show up, didn't sign. If this goes to collections, I'm screwed." I stared at the screen, then typed slowly, deliberately.
Me.
"I told you I was not signing. I meant it. You need to talk to them yourself." The reply came fast. "There are no options. My credit is trash. Fees, maybe a lawsuit. You don't understand." "I do," I typed. "You made your choices. I am just refusing to carry the consequences. I'm done being the backup plan." A pause, then a final message. "If this ruins my life, it's on you." "No," I thought coldly. "It's on you. I am just refusing to hide what happens next." My friend asked quietly, "You okay?" "No," I admitted, "but I am not going back." The following days blurred into a rhythm of survival. Sleeping on the couch, hours spent untangling the financial mess my parents had entangled me in. First, the bank. The loan officer sounded surprised. "You're the co-signer?" he asked. "I was supposed to be, but I have not signed," I clarified. "And I will not." He hesitated. "Our records show your name, but if unsigned, you're not legally responsible. Misuse of your college fund is a family dispute. You may want an attorney. Your brother is responsible for the loan if you don't sign." "Good," I said. That was how it should be. Next, the financial aid office. Across town, folder in hand, I laid out every statement and printout. The counselor, weary and kind-eyed, listened. "Your parents drained your savings, then expected you to co-sign your sibling's debt?" she said, sighing. "Pretty much," I said flatly. She paused, then smiled faintly. "There are options. Dependency override might allow aid based on your own financial situation. Letters from third parties help. If approved, your aid changes significantly and your parents lose access." I breathed out, a weight lifted. "I want that," I said. "Whatever it takes." She nodded. "We'll start the paperwork." Stepping back into sunlight, the campus felt different. Not magical, not fixed, but possible. I applied for student jobs, library shelving, front desk work. Not glamorous. Not enough alone. But it was a start. While I rebuilt my life, my family's carefully constructed illusion began to crumble. The voicemails from my mom shifted over time, from anger to exasperation. "How dare I involve strangers?" she snapped once. But I was already building my life, piece by piece, free from the debts and manipulation that had held me hostage for too long. I could feel it before I even opened my phone. A knot had formed in my stomach, twisting tighter as I anticipated the wave of messages that had been coming nonstop since I refused to co-sign my brother's debt. The first texts were predictable but sharp in their delivery. "Do you know how this makes us look?" my mother typed. Her words hit like stones, even though I had learned to expect them. "You are airing dirty laundry all over town." I closed my eyes and took a deep breath, recalling that all I had done was speak to a counselor and a trusted teacher, people who had agreed to help me document my appeal for financial independence. Word had a way of spreading, especially in small communities, like a candle flame catching on dry kindling. It was guilt, pure and raw, that came first. "Do you think we wanted to use that money?" she continued. "We had no choice. You are tearing this family apart." Every word felt rehearsed, calculated to make me feel responsible for the chaos I was already enduring. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, unsure whether to reply or let the messages sit, unread and unanswered. But the words didn't stop there. They evolved, mutated into panic. "The bank is calling nonstop," she said, her voice trembling through the text itself. "Your brother is falling apart. They're talking about collections and garnishment. We wouldn't be in this position if you had just signed like we asked." I read it twice, let the sting sink in, then deleted it. There was no point in prolonging the self-pity. My brother's texts were even more erratic, swinging wildly between blame and desperation, like a pendulum out of control. "You ruined everything. Please, I am begging you. Just sign this one, and I swear I will change. If they take me to court, it is on you. I cannot sleep. I cannot eat. I screwed up." I stared at the screen, my chest tightening, a storm of conflicting emotions rising inside me. Anger, guilt, responsibility, none of them were mine to bear anymore, and yet the familiar tug of old habits tried to pull me back into that old loop of rescue and appeasement. I typed, erased, retyped, over and over, a dozen drafts forming in my mind before I finally sent the only message that mattered. "Me. I hope you do change. But that is on you, not on me." The response came late that night. He sounded defeated. "They said if I do not work out a payment plan, they can garnish wages when I get a job. I do not know what I am supposed to do." "Me." I replied calmly, refusing to engage in the old pattern of fear, guilt, and rescue.
"Get a job.
Make a plan. Talk to a counselor. Stop pretending this is happening to you instead of because of you." No reply. Days slipped into weeks. I found rhythm in my new life, small steps toward reclaiming my future. I got a job at the library, shelving books in the evenings, mornings devoted to filling out forms and crafting my statement for the financial aid office. Every word I wrote was deliberate, a declaration of my independence. I poured my heart into that statement. I love my family, but they have repeatedly used my resources without my consent to solve problems I did not create. When I refused to sacrifice any further, they threatened to make me homeless. I am asking to be evaluated as an independent student so I can pursue my education without being financially bound to their choices. I did not use the word revenge. Not once. Yet as I sealed the envelope and sent it off, I realized this was revenge of a different kind. Not the cinematic type with dramatic courtroom showdowns, but the quieter kind. The kind where you stop playing a role scripted for you and start writing your own. The kind where the consequences they had tried to shield themselves from finally landed where they belonged, not on me, but on them. I had seen the first cracks forming. The bank calls, the financial aid office listening, my family's carefully maintained control beginning to slip. But the real impact would only be visible later, when paper decisions turned into tangible changes in their world, when I began building my life while they contended with the mess they had created. The email from the financial aid office arrived on a Tuesday afternoon while I was on my break at the library. The subject line alone made my stomach leap. Dependency, override decision. My hand shook as I clicked it open. "Dear Lily," it began. "After reviewing your documentation and personal statement, the committee has approved your request for a dependency override. Your financial aid package has been recalculated based on your independent status. Please log into your student portal to view your updated award. I read the message 3 times before it fully sank in. Approved. Independent. My fingers fumbled over the login, heart hammering, and when I finally accessed the portal, the numbers confirmed it. More grants, more subsidized aid, less reliance on parental contributions. Loans remained, costs remained, challenges remained, but for the first time, my ability to stay in school did not hinge on my mother picking up a phone or my brother staying out of trouble. Tears pricked my eyes, and I didn't notice until my friend appeared behind the circulation desk, napkins in hand. "Good news?" she asked gently. "The best," I whispered, dabbing at my cheeks. "They believed me. I get to stay." She hugged me tightly, a small, tangible celebration of a victory that had been hard-won, quiet yet monumental. That night, cheap takeout and a movie barely watched filled the apartment, but I slept more soundly than I had in months. Meanwhile, my family's world continued to unravel. Sporadic texts from my dad, reluctant updates from neighbors, and snippets of information painted a picture of escalating chaos. The bank refused to restructure without a cosigner. My brother, despite desperate attempts, could not convince them he would not default again. Late fees piled up, collection letters arrived relentlessly, and the once quiet house phone became a constant drone in their lives. "They keep calling during dinner," my dad wrote. "Your mom is not handling it well." I did not gloat. There was no need. The natural consequences of their choices, the accountability they had tried to avoid, were unfolding exactly as they should. For the first time, my brother could not hide behind phrases like, "We will figure it out." There was no we. There was only him and the consequences of his decisions. Months later, an unfamiliar number lit up my phone. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something inside me urged me to answer. "Hello," I said, cautious. "Hi," came the soft, tentative voice I knew too well. "It's me." I leaned against the wall, bracing myself. "What do you need?" I asked, wary but steady. For once, he was neither angry nor defensive. "I got a job," he said quietly. "Warehouse, out by the highway. It's not great, but it's work. They said if I stick with it, I can move up. The pay isn't enough to cover everything, but it's a start." I met with a financial counselor. We set up a payment plan with the collectors. "It's going to take years. My credit is shot. I won't be able to get an apartment or a car for a long time. I'm sorry." "I'm glad you're facing it," I said honestly. He let out a humorless laugh. "You were right about everything." He admitted something I had suspected but never heard before. I kept thinking someone would bail me out again, that they'd find a way. He realized that my refusal to rescue him forced him to grow up. My mom's calls dwindled over time, marked by frustration, desperation, and finally, a grudging acknowledgement. The months rolled on. I worked the library, finished my forms, paid my dues. Life was hard. Money was tight, but it was mine. Every late night, every instant noodle, every moment of exhaustion carried the quiet satisfaction of independence. Almost a year passed before I saw my parents face to face again. We met at a neutral coffee shop near campus. They looked different, older, grayer, hunched. Lines and wrinkles etched into their faces told the story of stress, failure, and change. "Hi," my dad said, awkwardly. "You look good." "Thanks," I replied, exhausted but grateful. The silence was heavy. "How is school?" he asked. "Busy," I said, "but good. I'm on track to finish my degree. The aid office has been surprisingly helpful." My mom stirred her coffee, eyes distant. "We heard about the override, the appeal, people talk." I told the truth, I said quietly. "If that makes you uncomfortable, maybe ask why." Her jaw tightened, then relaxed. "There are things I would do differently," she admitted. "Yes," I said. "And I lost a lot. My savings, my car, my trust. But I gained boundaries, a future that is mine, and I am not giving that up." My dad said quietly, We miss you. We would like to be part of your life again, if you'll let us." I studied them carefully. The instinct to soften, reassure, or prioritize their feelings flickered in me and then faded. I am willing to have a relationship, I said slowly, but it will be on my terms. No control over my finances, my education, or where I live. No more "we did it for your own good" speeches. If you cannot accept that, this is as far as we go. For once, my mom did not argue. My dad quietly nodded. I am not doing this to punish you, I said. I am doing it to protect myself. From your perspective, it may look like revenge. From mine, it's survival. Her eyes shimmered. We were supposed to protect you, she said. And we failed. We talked longer that day about classes, jobs, and my brother's struggles, the house, the debts, but when we left, there were no hugs. Just tentative nods, a recognition that the shape of our family had changed. Walking back to campus, I thought of the girl I had been on my 19th birthday, the one standing barefoot in the kitchen while my mother slid a loan agreement across the table. If I could speak to her now, I'd say, you are not selfish for refusing to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. You are not cruel for letting consequences land where they belong. You are not ungrateful for walking away from those who only love you when it's convenient. Sometimes the most powerful revenge is quiet. Not destruction, but refusal. Refusal to be destroyed. I packed my bags. I walked out. And when the dust settled, the girl they thought would always say yes had become someone they had to ask permission from. If you've ever been told to sacrifice your dreams for someone else's mess, ask yourself, who truly collapses if you stop saying yes, them or you? And what happens if, just once, you bet on yourself?